What is up, y'all? I'm Dr. Ray Gorman, physical therapist, founder of Engage Movement, and I am joined here by client turned friend at this point. I mean, we've known each other for a good time. Um, Kyle Womack, Dr. Kyle Womack from the Move Collective, now in the islands of Hawaii.
Yeah,
Kyle,
been
what's
around.
going on, man?
So,
Yeah, give him a little background about like your story, how we kind of came to met, and I know we're gonna have a good conversation on running really lean and really high profit margins, and I think there's gonna be a ton of value coming from this conversation.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. We've been through a lot of different changes.
Yeah,
Like background. So I'm originally an Oklahoma boy. So born and raised in Oklahoma. Grew up there, went to school there, graduated from University of Oklahoma from in PT school. So actually, Oklahoma State was my undergrad. That's my blood. But then University of
that's the
Oklahoma.
pokes, right?
Yeah, that was Polk. So
Yeah.
that's I bleed orange. Our room over here, if you can see in the corner, we have our little orange shrine in the corner. And then graduated University of Oklahoma for my doctorate in physical therapy, and then always had a dream to move to Hawaii. So came out to Hawaii a couple times as a kid, fell in love with just the culture and the people, the islands, everything. And so ever since I was probably 14, I said, when I'm done with school, I'm moving to Hawaii. And so
Yeah,
thankfully my wife was on board. We started dating back in 2008, just had our 17-year dating anniversary.
that's crazy,
And
man.
makes
Congrats.
me, it makes me feel old. Yeah. And so we started dating back in 2008, got married in 2011. And then 2015, found a job on Craigslist back in the day out here and said, let's go. I'd actually never been to Oahu before we moved here.
Okay,
Our first time moving here was with all of our bags, our dog, and I'm there with my Wranglers, my boots,
ready to
and
go, man.
my bird dog, in the Honolulu airport.
Yeah.
And so it was yeah, it was fun. So we worked for a clinic for a couple years, just your general outpatient clinic. Wasn't horrible. It wasn't like some of the horror stories that you hear, but it was a lot more high volume, less ability for quality care than I liked. So just kind of got burnt out of that pretty quick. I say within about 6 months, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure there's some Google searches that said, is this what this is? So I was trying
The
to figure
the
out.
the
So,
classic existential crisis.
yeah, I wish that I could find some Google searches from like December
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
Then ended up doing some home health so I could pay off my school loans. And did that for about a year and a half or so, and then around about a year into that I was like, I got to start my own thing.
Yeah.
Basically just I started driving around the island, just seeing clients. It worked out great with doing home health because I was able to see my home health clients, and then as soon as I finished up with my 4 or 5 for the day, then I'd kind of turn into you know
Cash
my
PT
cash
Kyle.
PT Kyle. Yeah, I think I was charging around $70 a visit to
Yeah.
everything, just to do my thing. And I drive around and see people, and I was like, I'm doing it. I have my own business now. And then
70 to 90 is like the range, right? Because like
yeah,
that's what we hear in outpatient. And so I feel like when I started, I was at $90 a session. And I think that's kind of everybody's like comfort zone. They're like, ooh, that's not quite $100. I'm good
yeah,
there.
yeah. I was just talking to a friend this last week, and she's a pelvic health PT, and she's like, yeah, I'm just kind of burnt out of seeing in people clients. She started her own kind of her own practice as well. She
Yeah.
has kids, so she was trying to make it flexible, and she's like, I'm just kind of burnt out of seeing people in person. I was like, what are you charging? Oh, 60 for evals and
Yeah.
70 and I was like that's why you're burnt out.
Yeah. You need so
So
much volume.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, so then during PT school, I competed in natural bodybuilding and got into powerlifting, and kind of barbell sports was kind of my thing outside of school. That was kind of my
Mhm.
jam. And so then I had a friend that was in a small group with me, and she owned a CrossFit gym, and she said, "Hey, if you ever want to come see if any clients want to work with you at my gym, come on over." So I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, let me know." And she called me one day. She said, "Hey, Thursday we're doing a whole gym meeting. They were doing like a nutrition challenge." She's like, "You want to come see if anybody wants to work with you?" I was like, "Sure, I'll show up." So I show up, and she goes, "Hey, everybody, this is Kyle. He's going to give us a quick presentation on what mobility is and why it's important." And I was like, okay, here we go. And that was basically seminar number one. Now
Cool.
I've done 60 to 70 of them.
Yeah.
Um, and and that night I got 5 clients and they were like, what do you charge? And I was like, hold on, I'll be right back. And I run to the bathroom and I'm like Googling, like, what do I charge?
Yeah.
I saw $100 and I was like, I'll make it 110. And so I like come out, I was like $110,
Yeah.
and picked up five clients. They were like, yep, sure. Sounds good. See you tomorrow. I was like, okay, cool. And then, the next day I showed back up, saw those 5 clients and they said, well, can I see you next week? I was like, yes. And so that started, that was back in like January 2018, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah, so from there it was drove around the island, going to different gyms and, popping up my table and my tent. And
So still mobile at that time, not really operating solely out of that space.
yeah, it was kind of like that space was kind of home base. We
Got it.
negotiated, like made them rent. It was CrossFit Zeus in IAEA. They're amazing gym, amazing owners, amazing
Yeah.
people. They've been super supportive of us through the years. So we were with them, and then I would go, I think 2 or 3 different gyms around the island at the time, and just like go one day a week at those ones. So did that, and then we were like, I think we should move to Kauai. So there was, one weekend we flew over to Kauai, and I just felt like, it sounds kind of strange to some, but like we just felt like the Lord said, we have to go here. And
Yeah.
so there was, there's a whole kind of whole fun story behind that. Ended up meeting our friend Jared that weekend, and basically like, hey, let's do it. So we moved everything over to Kauai, and then kind of did the same thing. We popped up in a Kauai CrossFit, and then I would go to 2 or 3 other gyms, did the same thing, and then there was about 2 years of that in. Then we felt like one night my wife and I were up late talking, and we were like, I feel like we're supposed to go to Oklahoma City, and so we're like, well, that feels weird.
Back to the roots, huh?
Back to the roots. So we're like, okay, well, let's kind of think about this, see what happens, and we kind of prayed about it, and it felt like, yeah, we need to go, and I think we need to make this happen fast. And we didn't really know why, but it felt like we need to do this quick. So we sold everything and moved to Oklahoma City,
Yeah.
and that was the first week of March 2020. And got there
What
thinking, all right, we're
did
gonna
did something crazy happen in March 2020 or
something crazy happen. So we got there thinking this is the land of milk and honey. There's like 30 gyms
yeah.
in the metro area. We had a whole spot set up, like 600 square foot room. Had all I needed to do was paint the walls, put flooring. It was ready to roll.
Yep.
Get there, we're all excited, like this, we're gonna kill it. And then 2 weeks later, the world shuts down,
Yeah.
and I had zero remote offerings at that time.
Yeah.
Which, if that were to happen now, we'd be in a much better position.
Sure.
But since it happened then, we weren't, and so I became a very well-educated Postmate driver. And
Well,
yeah,
and so you kind of went down the route. I don't mean to jump ahead, right? But like I think the thing that's kind of cool here is like everywhere you went, you kind of were starting up again and starting fresh again.
yeah,
And so fast forward me to you're in Oklahoma, the world shuts down, you kind of get things up and running, and basically like from what I remember of our story working together, you really like started to build a clinic that was just scaling like traditionally, right?
yeah, yeah,
So talk to me a little bit about that because I think that when people hear like what we do, what Engage Movement does, they think like it's all solopreneurs and it's never anybody that's had a team. And so I think you provide a really unique insight into like had a team, scaled the business that way. Like talk to me a little bit about that period of time.
yeah. So, kind of once COVID stuff kind of calmed down a little bit, thankfully Oklahoma City kind of opened up a little
Sure.
faster than other parts of the world. And so then, started having, we're pretty good at starting over. We've
Yeah.
done this now 4 times. So we kind of know. My wife and I will just like basically we just boots on the ground. We just start dropping into every gym we know, baking cookies, bringing cinnamon rolls. I mean, just the whole like. A lot of traditional PTs go to all the doctor's offices. Like we just knew every gym owner, so every
Yeah.
gym owner was our friend. We'd have them all over for dinner. We'd invite all of them. Be like, hey, we're making dinner tonight. Everybody come over. And so because our job was helping keep their members in the door. And
Yeah.
so it was a very good relationship. It still is. I'm still, most of my best friends are gym owners.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so then started as we kind of started building up a lot of traction, there was really nobody in Oklahoma City doing what we were doing. And so anybody that was coming out of PT school that didn't want to go, the word like PT mill and those
Yeah,
type things started popping up
traditional
right
outpatient
in that world.
orthopedic.
Everybody's
Yeah,
like, I don't want to do that.
yeah.
And so then they see us running around working at CrossFit competitions and doing workshops. And, we start getting a lot of people really interested in us. So we had people like, hey, are you hiring? And it kind of got to a point where I had like a 2 or 3 month wait list.
You
And
personally,
me personally, yeah,
yeah,
because it was just
okay,
me for a while. And so then we had people that were, hey, are you hiring? Do you want to bring anybody on? And there was a couple that I was like, okay, yeah, let's bring you on. One of them, I think we ended up having like 4 or 5 different people through the years that come on as like, we did it as kind of as contractors at the time.
yeah.
Um, and that's a whole nother conversation of
That's a
like
whole
whether,
nother conversation. Sure.
yeah, we'll save that for version two. Um, but of like, okay, how do we set this up? So we had a few different come. One of them, I knew she was going to start her own business,
Yeah,
and we knew that from the get go. And I told her, hey, I'll help you. You can use my space and build everything up, and then once you're ready to rock, then go fly. And we had that from the front end, and
yeah.
everything worked out really well. And then we kind of got to where we wanted to move back to Oahu. So then we brought a couple people on, and the whole goal was to get them as busy as possible,
Hmm.
because I needed to
Before
take
you
myself
left.
out of the picture before we left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we spent probably from about like February until we left in September. So through that, most of that year was just like I was pulling back a lot. I was still seeing a lot. I mean, I was still probably seeing, oh shoot, I don't know, like 50 to 60 people. Let's see, I had some actual numbers here a second ago. I forgot. I don't know where they're at, but I was probably still seeing like 50 or 60 people um, a month uh, during that time. But I
Hmm.
was also trying to build up to where we were getting their schedules full, so that way I
Because
could
your goal was keep the brand existent in Oklahoma,
right,
do what everybody tells you that you can do, which is remove yourself from the business so that you don't have to have the headache of running the business and the business just runs itself.
right.
And do you feel like that is like a reality of what you experienced, or is that kind of like the sunshine and rainbows version of managing an in-person business, managing other people, other providers? Like, talk to me a little bit about what you were feeling in that period of time, or about those kind of things.
Yeah, it's a mix of emotions,
Yeah.
because what happens is you have a lot of revenue coming in,
Hmm.
and you're building this brand, and there's a lot of things that I did wrong, so there's a
Sure.
lot of things that, I don't know that fully exiting ourselves completely out of it was a good idea, and most people's situations aren't like that. Most people
Yeah.
aren't trying
They're
to,
still going to be local.
yeah, they might move an hour away.
Yeah.
They're not moving on the other side of the world like we were. So there's a lot of different context to the story. But kind of what ended up happening is we brought on, admin staff. We brought on a couple other contractors, to basically, we had 2 different clinics going at the time in 2 different gyms, and we were pumping. I mean, we had some like 30, 40K months. Like things
Yeah.
were really rolling, making a big statement kind of in the city. We kind of, at that point, the goal when we got there was said, like, we want to be known as like the Oklahoma City fitness provider. So
Hmm.
like CrossFit, fitness, runners, like if somebody has a problem, they go to Move OKC. And um and then that went for about a year, and then about a year in, then kind of, it kind of stuff starts kind of happening to where I was like, okay, I could tell that we just as a team just weren't jiving very well. And then they ended up kind of stepping away and starting their own thing. And um, and so and then that was a difficult process, because then it was like, okay, now we've got to figure out how do we handle all this. And at the time, this is kind of whenever around that time is when you and I really started working together, because I was wanting to figure out how to add more of kind of a remote option, or have more of this like prescriptive exercise program, but I needed to try it for myself
Yeah.
before I then could bring it to my team, because we'd been,
So
their
the
expectation is that they do in-person visits. And
Yeah,
when
that
I would come in and be like, we're going to change all this, nobody wanted to do that,
and
you
so
know?
the plan was you kind of go through our program, right? The performance
Right.
provider growth model, learn how to implement a blended practice model into your existing business in Oklahoma. But what really happened was slightly different. So you and I start working together. And if you don't mind sharing, what were like you were doing, you said like 30, $40,000 months, which, for those of you out there listening, $40,000 a month is like a $500,000 run rate, just about, right? That's a lot of money as a clinic. What were you kind of bringing home as an owner with that quote unquote scalable business, right? Everybody says scale with people and you're going to make all this money. But what they don't tell you is that like when you scale that way, it's actually really expensive.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
were you kind of bringing home in that period of time when you guys were doing those numbers?
Yeah. So here's, I'll give you some a back part and then that part. So let's go to January 2018. This was my first full month of like, I have a business. I was in a CrossFit gym. I started like really hustling. Saw 38 people. So I found my list of numbers. Saw 38 people. In that month, we made 4,300 gross. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
a total $4,300. That was before paying myself. That was before any expenses, anything. Okay, now that was when I had no idea what we were doing.
Right,
We were just shooting for the moon and seeing what happens.
right.
So then we fast forward to September 2022. So this was the month before we moved to Oahu. So this was probably when we were at the busiest because I was still running full speed. Both clinicians were running full speed. Our clinic saw 206 visits.
Yeah,
57 of those were me. So there was about then that other the other 150 were combined by my other clinicians.
yep,
So I saw 57. We grossed a little over 30K, and then I paid myself four.
right.
So the thing is like, and if we go back to January 2018, like I didn't have much expenses
Right.
because
You were literally almost making the same amount of money.
yeah,
Your net margin in January 2018 was close to 4K because you had no expenses.
yeah,
And now here you are, years later making, 8 times as much money, but bringing
right.
home the same amount with a headache that is 10 times, 20 times.
Oh yeah, because you're managing people, and remember, we're like, my wife is a budgeting ninja. Okay,
Hmm.
so she's the only reason we live in Hawaii because she is just so good at
Yeah.
figuring out where to put dollars and how to do it all. So with my budgeting ninja wife and our rent, like our total overhead of rent between the two places was about $1,100. Okay, so that was two locations,
Yeah.
about 500 and 600 each. So like it wasn't like we had this state of art
Massive facility.
facility. We were very lean. However, we were paying our clinicians quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the part that was majority of our expense was kind of paying our clinicians, which is fair. They're professionals; they should be paid
Yeah.
well. But then there's like even during that time, I'm still seeing 57 clients. That wasn't me doing nothing, making $4,000. That was me still grinding
Yeah.
really, really, really hard because you got to remember now you got to meet with each of these people. You got to, you're still running the marketing. You're still doing all the back end, still making all the systems work, all the,
Yep.
there's a lot of stuff that happens on the back end when you're running a business that isn't client care.
Well, and it's just like this isn't the first time that I've heard this story, right? Like
Yeah.
I've worked with other, 40K plus practice owners who do have 4,500, $5,000 in, building rent overhead, who do have two, three providers and are in the same situation. They're bringing home 4,000 if they're lucky. And
Yeah.
then we have these other providers that are running really lean businesses that are making, 8K per month but are bringing home 7,500.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of serendipitous, the universe kind of syncing us up when it did. But talk a little bit about like what happened as, you were starting to go through this transition and you were starting to implement this virtual offer. Like what was kind of going on in that time and in your life and in your team and all of that?
Ooh, a lot. So, okay. So the team left. I got about a month notice on that, and then because of the way that we had everything kind of structured, um, the majority of what we had saved up from people buying prepaid packages and all
Yeah.
that to be able to use for marketing, all that, we still had all that saved up, but basically that whole fund got depleted.
Because you had to
And
refund it. You had to,
I basically
yeah,
had to like either like refund or prepay the clinicians, and so
right.
so that was not fun, but we had it there. It wasn't like we had to go into debt
Yeah.
for it because
Yeah.
we were smart. We had it there, so it wasn't like we went and spent it. But that still just isn't fun when you see a $20,000 savings account turn into zero over a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that happened. We had just had our fourth child. Um, so that happened as well. Or I think we were just pregnant. I think we just found out we were pregnant actually.
Yeah.
So with our fourth, and we had just bought a house, and so we just bought a house out in Oahu, which isn't very cheap,
So just
but
a little bit of life stress happening all at once.
just a couple things at once. Yeah,
Yeah.
a few. Um, and I just started working with a business coach. So this was prior to meeting you. I had been working with him, and amazing person, but it was a very expensive investment.
Yeah.
And so it was had that we had it was a things were the leaky bucket was like there's
Was
not holes in
was
the bucket, like
leaking.
there's no bottom in the bucket.
This isn't the sticky tape meme where we slap it
Yeah,
on and yeah,
yeah. So
there was
it's
too
like
many.
put on sticky tape on the side, but there's literally no bottom. So
Yeah.
kind of how things felt. And so I was a little stressed. We had some phone calls where I was very shaky, I remember.
Yeah.
And anyways, and then you're like, okay, well, here's what we do. We build this out. We add a remote offer. Thankfully I had started kind of seeing a few more clients here on Oahu.
Yeah.
But I was doing it the same old way. I was just doing in-person visits. I was driving around gym to gym to gym. And then I think the thing that kind of like was the turnover is I had a gym on another island say, "Hey, we want you to come out and do a seminar," and I literally couldn't see those people in person.
Yeah.
So the only way that I could work with these people would be remotely. And so it was kind of my let's see if this works. And went over, did a seminar. I think I picked up 5 or 6 clients from that one seminar, and I made an offer of like, here's what we do. Here's my remote offer. Um, and and then what happened is I was wondering if it was even going to work, not business wise, because it seemed like it would work business wise, but as a clinician, like I'm a professional, I still need to provide a professional service. I
Yeah,
don't want to just make
you are still on the hook for the outcome.
right, exactly. So like I still like I really like the reason we've built up to what we have is we provide very good outcomes.
Yeah.
We're not just smooth talkers. Like we want to back it up, and so
And historically in person, right? So it's
right,
like you're
only in
about to undergo this big shift of this guy, Ray Gorman, who at that time, you and I knew each other, but like we didn't know each other as well as we do now, who's
right,
basically saying, like, dude, everything that you're doing in person, you can do online. And I promise you that your life will become easier when you just sell these people into recurring revenue
right.
and you don't have to worry about the staff. You don't have to worry about the overhead associated with, gyms or rent or anything like that. And you kind of took the leap of faith,
So, yeah,
right?
so we sent it and picked up some clients, and then the best part is not the revenue, not all that. The best part is
Yeah.
all those people got better.
Yeah.
So I didn't
You
even touch
proved it
those.
to yourself.
There was even people that came on after the seminar that weren't even at the seminar. So I literally had never even met some of these people in person. And
Yeah.
then I'm doing an onboarding call. I give them the self assessment that you sent me. That I still use the same one. I'm like,
Yep.
one of these days I'm going to video my own videos, but for now I
For
literally
now
just like
it's me and my wife.
it's you and your wife built
Yeah.
out on True Coach, and nobody. I mean, everybody's fine with it. I've never
It
had anybody
literally
be like,
is
"Do
it
your own
is
video."
it for anybody listening out there who's like, "Oh my gosh, if I do something remote, that means I have to put all these videos out there." In my entire career, like I have had times where there was like 10 videos of me and the rest were just like really good YouTube links. I promise you people are not paying for the video quality or you to be in the videos. They are paying for your brain to get them outcomes.
Yeah, exactly. I trickle out videos of myself here and
Sure.
there, but honestly, like, yeah, I had like last night, I had a movement. I was working on a client's program. I had a movement I couldn't find. Went to YouTube,
That's the way to do it.
three or four different ones. Like I like that one. Boom, put it in. There we go. And then
That's the way to
and
do
then
it.
So I'll video my own, but you don't have to have all that on the front. You trickle them out as you can.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we started doing the remote part, and I realized, oh, this actually works. So then I thought, well, no, I thought you told me as if I had this idea. You told me you're like, okay, you need to do this with your in-person people too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And at the time, I was the coach I was working with as well. He was like, hey, you can't do only in person ever again. He was like, you move around too much. He's like, I don't know where you're gonna be. He's like, whatever you build up, there has to be a remote piece to this. And you were telling me the same thing. So everybody, you're telling me, he's telling me, everybody's telling me. I was like, okay, all right, we'll do this. So basically made it to where all of my packages turned into, I'm going to see you, for this amount of time, it be this amount of visits, and I'm going to build everything out for you in the middle. And basically, so we're going to work kind of in a hybrid way.
Hmm.
So then I can see people less visits. I can provide a better service. I can make more revenue, and really it costs them less total
Yep.
because not just in cost, but also in time. Because as clinicians, we live in our little bubble, and a lot of times it's really easy just to think like, oh, this is an hour of their time. No, it's an hour
Hmm.
of your time. Their
Yeah.
time is like 3 hours, especially, and if they have kids, it's four,
Yeah.
because they've got to stop whatever they're doing. They've got to change clothes, drive to see you for an hour, shoot the bull for another 15 minutes, get back in their car, drive back to what they're doing, pick up their kids, da da da, whatever. And now it's 4 hours of their day to come see you for that one. And
Hmm.
so if you can eliminate that time from them, build them stuff to do when they're already at the gym. They're there already. They just have to get there 10 to 15 minutes early now to work on things. Like it's a win-win-win for everybody. And so, and then that's less people you got to see. So then you can handle more clients.
The biggest thing that I think for me when I was practicing clinically was like talking about it through the lens of how it was actually a time savings for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we tell ourselves the story that like clients love coming to physical therapy, and like that might be true, but they also might love doing other things more.
Yeah.
And so if we can be really efficient in the process and we can set things up in a way that um, we get them the results that they need, right? Like what I want everybody to take away from this is like, this isn't about not providing a world-class service. Like the thing for me was I actually felt like I started to have the belief that without a remote offer, there was actually no way for my service to be world class.
Yeah.
Like
Fully agree.
that was the big shift for me. And so the reason why, 90% of my clients went on to a prescriptive exercise program was because everything that I was talking about in my evaluation, everything that I was talking about in my messaging was all talking about how the prescriptive exercise program was the thing that they needed to get them the result. And
Right.
also, it happened to be the best thing that I ever did in my business, got me my time back, got me financial stability of creating recurring revenue in the business, got me time back. Like all of these things were just
Yeah.
the utmost important for me as a provider.
Right. Well, and for me too, the time thing is the big important part for me. So we haven't even really well, I kind of barely mentioned, but I have four daughters. So
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. It's chaos 24/7. And my wife is an amazing person, but like I'm not gonna make her handle
She
this 24/7 by herself.
she's outmanned. She's outmanned.
Well,
You guys are outmanned when it's the two of you, but when it's
yeah,
4-on-1,
yeah.
it's not fair.
So the thing is, when we create our dreams, it's like, hey, we want to live in Hawaii. We want to own a home. We want to be able to go to the beach a couple times a
Mhm.
week. I want to be able to surf. We want to work out with our friends. We want to, these are all the things we want. And then there's not time in my week to go see clients 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like there's not time for that with the life that I want. I could do that, but then I'm not home. And like I didn't start a business to be a slave to my business.
100%, man. And I think people have a hard time believing how much money you can make in how short of a period of time. And that's because they only think of business in a way of trading time for money. So when they hear me say, like, ten to $20,000 per month and less than 25 hours per week. Like you are living proof of that, at the $20 or $20,000 per month mark.
Yeah.
And do you even have a VA?
No.
So you are literally, I mean, your wife is kind of in the
Yeah.
business too. Yeah. So
Yeah. But
I
honestly,
would,
since we've had four kids, like she's kind of had to step back a lot. So it's really
yeah.
been just
So, I mean, the thing that I want people to kind of get from this is like, you want to build a business that fits your dream life, not conform your life around your business, which is, I would argue, the thing that you were kind of doing for a long time in Oklahoma.
yeah.
And you were kind of trying to make the traditional way of scaling work,
Yeah.
but like giving you the flexibility that you wanted. And it was just like those two ideas were kind of at friction.
Right. Yeah.
So talk
Exactly.
to me a little bit about like the numbers now, the life now that you have the performance provider growth model implemented in your clinic, now that you're operating with a blended model, and it's pretty much you solo.
Yeah. So basically after everybody had left in Oklahoma City, we shut down all those clinics, kind of got everybody paid out, kind of caught my breath again and was like, okay, what do we do? Then we started bringing on some remote people that were completely in other locations that I literally couldn't work with in person. And then we shifted into more of like this hybrid model for the people that are here on Oahu,
Yeah.
that I do work with in person. And it takes a little bit to, anytime you shift anything, it takes a little bit, a couple months to kind
Sure.
of like get your feet wet and figure out how to sell it, when you're so used to being like, this is what we're going to do. It's going to take 10 visits. There's the cost. When you're so used to that, you have to then like have to reroute your brain on how you sell things. And so
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a build up period. I'd probably say like maybe 2 or 3 months of figuring out how to do that. But we've been doing this now. Some of my better numbers that I was telling you earlier, and I'll kind of go over, were like March 2024. So we've been kind of running this same model now over a
For
year
yeah,
plus.
just like 15 months around, I
Yeah.
think.
And the great thing with is we've learned how to turn on the gas and how to turn off the gas. Because
We'll pull on that for sure.
yeah, so there's when I need to turn on the gas, I can. When I
Yep.
need to turn it back because I'm working too much, I can. Because remember, I still have four kids. Like I could, with this model, we could turn on the gas and we could really go. But I like seeing people 1, maybe 2 days a week. I don't
Yeah.
like seeing more than that. I want to, now those days I pack them. So like my Tuesdays, I see sometimes 8 people, sometimes nine.
Yep.
So those are pretty packed days, but you got to remember that's 1 day a week. And
Yeah.
then I might have an overflow of 2 or 3 people on a Thursday if I have an overflow. But that's about it. I'm not going up to the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week, seeing client after client. Like I maybe see at most 15 people in a week.
Okay.
That's like a jam packed, like I am worn out week is 15 people in a whole week.
Yep.
Um, so if we look at, last year, like one of our better months last year, I saw 43 visits and we made right around 20K.
Hmm.
And then like basically we were able to pay ourselves 12,000 from that.
Okay.
Now,
Not bad.
now there was a lot of like different expenses with coaching and, every business is going to have some expenses,
Sure.
especially as you build up in things, different softwares, having EMR, having True Coach, having phone lines, everything kind of starts building up. But then like, we've kind of been running that same thing and there's been ups and downs with it as any business is. They need to learn how to manage those. So
Mhm.
like you have to learn to not get too excited about the big months and not get too sad about the low months and
That
learn to
is
just
very true.
ride the middle because there's going to be highs and lows. Like right now we're in a high period. So like the last 2 months, both months have been over 20K months. Both months we've been able to pay ourselves 12 to 14K in those. Seeing, I think I just added up this month. So I think this month, I think I put in my ones I'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow will be around about 50 visits.
And
And
that's still around like what, 12 to 15 in-person hours per week.
right.
And then how much time are you spending on like marketing the business, writing the programming, like how much time is going into there?
So Not a ton lately because also kind of like we've had this whole nother venture. We're actually opening a CrossFit gym here on Oahu.
Yeah.
And so one, like we've been able to put energy towards that. And there's 8,000 decisions that have to be made in the next couple of weeks to open a gym. So
Four
we're,
hours per week?
I would say like actual programming and everything, probably 5 to 6, because I've probably got about
Okay.
35 to 40 people that I'm doing prescriptive exercise program for right now.
That's awesome, dude.
Now
Let's go.
here's how I do it. And I can't say I recommend this, but
And
this is
well,
what works.
and what one sec, and
Yeah.
how many hours are you spending marketing the business?
Oh, I don't know.
Not do you, you don't really need
RP?
to at this point because
No,
it's kind of okay.
no.
So
Like I
you're
might go
kind
do
of
one. I might do a seminar every maybe once a month. I'll do a like a 1 or 2 hour seminar, and then if there's a competition, we try to
sure.
work at every competition. There's not very many on the island, but
So
if
let's
there's a
average
competition,
it out to 20 hours a week over the course of the month. You're doing 12 client sessions. You got 6 hours of programming.
right?
Over the course of the month, maybe you're spending 8 hours marketing.
Yeah,
You're literally doing 20,000 plus dollars per month in 20 hours per week.
yeah.
So when I talk about this model, of course, when I'm writing this stuff on, presentations and things like that, like, yes, it is theoretical,
Right.
but like Kyle is living freaking proof that 20 hours per week, he's doing $20,000 a month. That
Yeah.
is half the amount of time as a traditional, physical therapist is working, and that is probably four times the earning potential, of
Oh
the
yeah.
average, or three times the earning potential of the average. Like,
Well, I remember there was a time that I texted you. I remember one day that I had gone and I'd gone to a different gym.
yeah, you flew to
I
an
think
like you did like a sprint day.
Yeah, I did a sprint day.
Yeah,
And those have been really beneficial for especially building the prescriptive part because
yeah,
having that recurring revenue is really, really nice. Like whenever when I make my finance page, we're still using Excel spreadsheets,
yeah.
but like
That's
when I
all
make my
good. I
finance
still use
page for
that,
next month, it's really fun because I copy, I paste, I delete the old visits, and it's still recurring revenue of like around 9,000, you
dude.
know, and so
Let's go.
that's such a nice feeling because used to it wasn't that. Used to it was like copy paste zero, and then it's like big breath. Here we go.
Zero because your revenue literally lives and died by the session back in the
Exactly.
old model,
And
right?
and if I get sick, oh yeah, I forgot. This last month I was sick for a week. Like so that was literally 3 weeks of work.
Yeah,
I my whole family caught some flu, something gnarly that put me out for most of that week. I had to cancel all my appointments. So
100%.
that's with that too.
Yep.
There's and my wife and I took a trip over to Maui.
Yep.
It's like there's so much flexibility
I tell
when you implement it this way.
I tell this story a lot, but I've been telling it more recently because I start to think of like these pivotal moments for me. And back when I was doing everything in person, I was still working 40 hours in the clinic, and so I had one big clinic day, kind of like you were saying. You see 8 or 9 people. Well, I had my Fridays. It was like there was like $1,000 or $800 worth of treatment sessions on there, and it
Hmm.
rained harder than ever in Reno,
Yeah,
and the roads to my clinic flooded. And so it cost me $1,000 that day, like having to be in person. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back for me, where I was like, man, like I do not want to live my life like this, where all of my revenue is going to be tied to sessions. And I think what a lot of people do is they create recurring revenue in their business, but they still tie it to time.
yeah.
And it's just like that just doesn't solve any problems for you.
So here's a way that we solve some of that. Now I don't get a lot of cancellations,
Yeah,
but it happens occasionally.
sure.
Like I have a girl that just texted me right before our call that she's wanting to come in. She said, "Hey, I'm sick this week. I can't make it this week." Okay, that's fine. But when I'm only seeing people one day a week, okay, that pushes it another week. And so
There's
there's an urgency,
urgency
like
and
for her
scarcity to get to
to get
your
her
yeah.
better, but then also for me as a business owner to I still got to generate revenue. Um, However, what we've done is we've switched things to more of like, I work with you for 2 months or I work with you for 3 months.
Hmm.
And there's different ways you can do this, but The like our 3 month is kind of our bread and butter. That's the person that's most people that come into me. That's the people that come in like, hey, I have a shoulder thing, a knee thing, a back thing. I've been dealing with it for 5 years. I want to be able to lift and have fun with my friends, but every time I do, my back hurts. We hear the same story all the time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my general person. So I have a one price. I'm going to see you as many times as I need to see you in those 3 months, and I'm going to build everything out for you in the middle.
Yep.
So normally that ends up being around 8 to 10 visits or so. If it's less, it's less. If it's more, it's more. But
Yeah.
but the goal is that we're going to get you better in 3 months.
Right.
And so then if someone needs to cancel, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter on you. And keep in mind, guys, like that is, I'll be fully transparent. That's not really the standard model that we teach in the
Yeah. That was
PPGM.
kind of a hybrid between you and Greg. Yeah.
That also doesn't mean that like it is not correct, right? Because like within our community, you're going to find a couple different flavors of how people like to structure their business and how people like to structure their revenue system. And so the job for me is to help you figure out the one that works well for you. But like in my brain works really well when the two offers, the in-person and the virtual, the prescriptive exercise program, are separate. My brain just works really well with that. I like the fact that when one thing falls off, the other one can keep going. That doesn't mean that there aren't a couple flavors of this that we can help you iterate on and really figure out what works best for you. But so you basically went from, you know, you went from $4,300 at, let's call it 90% margin, to $30,000 at, what would that be? 11, 12% take home,
Yeah.
to now you're at $20,000 with, you know,
Yeah.
60 plus percent take home. I mean, that is just like, to me, like, that is the type of business that makes the most sense, because it's like, why do I want to just keep investing money into the business and create a bigger headache for myself when I could be pulling that money out, putting it away in my retirement, investing it back into myself, investing it into my next project, whatever that might be. Like,
Right.
again, like, none of these things are wrong. It's just like what makes the most sense for you. And the biggest mistake I think people can make in business is simply building somebody else's dream business or somebody else's version of scale when you really want like a lifestyle first model.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is too is you got to remember when running a business, the numbers that we're telling you are different than the numbers on your W-2. So like
Mhm.
if you're listening to this and you're still an employee, when you get paid, let's say that you make $10,000 a month. Let's say that you're like in a really high end PT clinic and you're getting
Yeah.
paid really well. One, congratulations for finding that job.
Yeah. He,
Two,
stay
that
there.
that's what you get, and then you get to pay your expenses and all that. So
Mhm.
whenever I say we're making 14,000, like that's after we've already invested into our Roth IRA, put some into
Oh,
a high
wow.
savings, put some into my kids, some paid to my kids. There's different ways you can kind of tax wise do that.
Sure.
That's there's a lot of different things that are already happening. That's phone bill, that's internet,
So that's
that's
essentially what's left over
right.
after you
That's
guys have
basically
actually
just
made. So
paying
you're probably
mortgage
operating more.
and
You're probably
mortgage
op,
and house bills.
you're probably operating more at like the 17, 18 if you brought home the profit plus benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
go,
So
dude.
it's
That's awesome, man.
so
That
there's
is
there's a
awesome.
lot of things that are kind of build that, and you can there's so many ways to write and
Yeah,
legally
play the game. You got to play the
legally
game
play the
for
tax
sure.
game.
Yeah, you got to play the
So,
game.
those numbers, or even sometimes if the numbers look like, oh, I only paid myself this amount, we're still talking about the same thing. Like, oh well, this guy only made $10,000. Well, he also invested into his Roth IRA. He also, that amount went towards a car payment because it's run through the business. There's a lot of things you can do um,
I
to make that.
I think there's a lot of people right now talking about how work-life balance doesn't exist, and how, I literally saw somebody the other day that was like, if somebody comes into a job interview and mentions work-life balance, like they're automatically disqualified.
Hmm.
And to me, it's like work-life balance absolutely exists. It just means that like the first thing that I'm willing to sacrifice isn't my life. It is
Yeah.
something else. And I will always sacrifice making more money for doing things that I want to do. I don't want to say I've always been like this, but I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to realize that saying no to the wrong type of money actually makes you more money in the long run because you start to attract the kind of money that you actually want to make. Um, and what would you kind of say to anybody out there that is like, this sounds great, but like, what do I do next? Like, how do I actually tactically start making this stuff happen?
Yeah. Um, I'd say first off, just create a virtual offer.
Yeah,
Like, and here's the thing is you don't know. We can speculate on what people will buy and
yeah,
what will help people, but you don't know unless you try. And so like it might be that you actually really suck at doing virtual offers and you actually aren't good at this and nobody wants it and that might happen, but you don't know unless you try.
yeah,
Or the opposite could happen is that do kind of what happened with us is we thought, well, let's just see what happens. Ray tells me it's going to work, and I trust him, and let's try. And the next thing you know, I'm like, wow, my outcomes are better. I'm spending less time. I'm making more revenue. It's costing my clients less. I can handle more people. I can create a bigger impact. I have more time with my family. It literally everything started winning, and I don't have any other employees. It's just me and my wife, and that's it. And
yeah.
I go, we're still really lean right now. We're about to change because with opening the
Sure.
gym and all that, it'll be a little different. But that's because we want
It's
to. That's
because
not because
and
like
it's because
that's
the
the passion project.
and it's
Is
because the PT business is running at such a high clip that you can now take a bigger leap and invest in a different business.
right.
You can build out a different model because you've been able to stack so many chips from that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, biggest thing is just do it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, just try, and try with, anytime you want to raise your rates, here's what you do is the next person that comes in, you tell them the new rate and they either say yes or they say no.
Yeah.
And then you try it again. And what happens is every single time I've raised my rates, every single time I say, okay, tomorrow we're raising our rates and it's going to be this number. And then that person comes in for the eval. I say, this, and this, here's the price. And they go, hmm, it's a little high. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Done. Let's go. Okay. So it's like, so
It,
then when you make a new offer, it's the same thing. Say rather than saying, okay, well, I'm going to see you for 6 visits. Here's my 6 visit package, and then having this whole list of all these packages and bull crap that you think that people care about. No, you just go, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's the things I'm finding in your assessment. We need to work on this, this, and this. This is going to help you with being able to deadlift without back pain. This is going to be able to help you with playing at your kids at the park. And then when you do a snatch, does your right foot kick out every single time? Because it kind of seems like that might happen. They're like, yeah, every time my foot leaves the ground, my right foot kicks out. I'm like, oh yeah, well that's because you're missing hip internal rotation on the right side, tibial internal rotation. If we can improve that, and then we can
yeah.
improve your thoracic spine mobility, then you're going to be good, and we'll be able to start working on that. And then I can coach you through your snatch, and then we can start working on your gymnastics after that.
Become the
And
expert.
right, and then say, okay, so to do all that, it's going to take a little time. We got to get some mobility stuff freed up first. I got to do some very basic just stability drills, and then it starts getting really fun. I'm going to see you quite a bit here in the beginning, maybe like once a week, and then I'm going to start spacing that out towards the end for about 3 months, and I'm going to build everything out for you to do in the middle. So I'm going to
Yeah.
literally Monday, you're going to show up to the gym, open the app, and say, I do these 4 things, and we'll do that, that, and that. Here's the cost. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
They're like, well, do I have to pay it all up front? It's like you can either pay it once or we can just split it in three and pay it monthly. Which one would
The
you rather? They're like, well, I'll just pay it up front. Boom, done. It's
the
like
other thing that I've realized,
doing a
and
sales process.
and I feel I feel like you will agree with me on this. You probably got the same objections when you had the $70 rates as you do with your rates now. And I've
Or
noticed that yeah, like when I sell a $500 thing or a $5,000 thing, people still want to think about it. People still think it's expensive. And so like the reason I say that is like you might as well get more comfortable at selling the more expensive thing because that
yeah,
is just going to make your life easier. And the other thing that I guarantee you that the clients that pay $5,000 for the thing versus the clients that pay $500, the $5,000 client is going to get a better outcome. So
Yep.
by keeping your rates too low, you are actually doing your ideal clients a disservice. You have to ask them to put enough in the pot so that it becomes something at risk for them if they don't do it.
Yeah. Two parts of that. One, every time I've raised my rates, my outcomes get better.
Yep.
Not now, hear me out. It wasn't my outcomes got better and then I raised my rates, or I got a new certification and then I raised my
Yeah.
rates. Nobody cares about the letters. I got more letters after my name than in my name. That's what my goal was. And literally nobody cares. They're like,
That's good
no,
stuff.
I bet half my client, not half, I bet there's a percentage of my clients don't even know I'm a physical therapist. They're probably just like, Kyle helps me with things and I get better. And
Dude, that's
like,
such a
and then
valuable lesson.
someone will come up and be like, "Hey, doctor," like 'cause I don't really promote. I'm like Doctor Kyle that
Yeah.
much,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm Kyle. And so someone will come in like, "Hey, Doctor Kyle," they're like, "You're a doctor?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." Like, you have like a PhD, and I'm like, "Well, no, like it's a clinical doc. You got to explain all that." And like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
wow, I didn't even know. I thought you were a CrossFit coach.
Yeah.
You know, it's like so people don't care if you can help them. That's what they care about.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. I didn't actually have a number for this, but whenever I'm telling you those numbers of like the 50 visits this last month,
Yeah.
here's the cool part is there's probably about 10 to 15 of those that were free visits
Mm,
because when I can charge a premium to the people that can afford it, I can help people that can't afford it.
yeah.
And so there's some people now that is a very slippery slope. Okay. That's a whole other conversation, but there's I have a handful of friends that I know them really, really well. And I know financially they can't afford me.
Right.
I know people there's and that's not always, but there
It's not a mindset thing. It is a
no,
logistical,
it's
like this
literally just
would
numbers
be
aren't there.
the last dollars
Yeah,
in their bank account.
exactly. And so and then I'll see them hobbling around or something and like and they don't want to ask me because they know I'm
Sure.
expensive. They know I charge a premium. And it's pretty well known. I provide a good service, like and so I know they don't want to ask me because of that, because they're like, well, I don't want to ask them because I don't want to bother them, da, 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 da. And I can go and be like, hey, what's up with your back? I'm like, oh, well, I tweaked it and it's been going on and off. I have one friend that I've been seeing her once a week for a little bit, and she is so thankful. She does everything I say, and I can do that. So I can have a premium offer and I have a free.
Dude, that's
And,
awesome, man.
and I can give them the same service, but because I charge the premium to the people that can afford it, and some people that can't. There's some people that can't afford it, and they still choose to. We don't work with rich people, and guess what? In Hawaii, it's expensive. People aren't loaded with money out
Yeah,
here because are like the actual income to the cost of living. Like it's not
it's
like New
high.
York
Yeah.
or LA. Like New York and LA, it's like you make more, you spend more. I assume I'm not in LA. You would know better than me. But like in Hawaii, it's like no, you make way less and you spend double.
Yeah.
And so there's not people just like loaded with cash out here, but there's people that have extra money that can afford to get a good service. And whenever I can serve those people, and then it gives me the ability to help others that can't.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
it's just
yeah,
it's kind of crazy, man, because, everything that I talk about, make more money in less time, $20,000 a month in less than 25 hours per week, charge premium services so you can give back to the community. Like you are living proof that this is possible. And I think it's really important for people to hear that. You've also kind of been through different versions of business and you've tried the scale with people model, you've tried the work yourself out of the business model. What's kind of the one thing that you want to leave people with as we kind of wrap this up? And, if there's people out there that are on the fence of implementing a virtual offer, starting their business, in reality, like taking the chance to build the life that they really want to create, like what's kind of the one thing that Kyle Womack wants to deliver as his message to them?
um, you have to hustle no matter what.
There's a period of time, no doubt.
Yeah. So if this is somebody that's just like really on the fence of like, should I do this? Should I not? Like, guess what? Like, you've got to put in time,
Yeah.
and you've got to put in a lot of that time is going to be unpaid, especially in the beginning. And you've got to the thing that this is the statement my wife and I say, we want to be everywhere.
Mm,
And we started seeing people tell us, man, you guys are everywhere. And really, we're not. It's just that if there's an event with our ideal client, we're there.
Yeah.
So if there's a CrossFit, like I work with mostly CrossFitters, surely people have picked up at this point. If there's a CrossFit event going on within a 2 hour flight, I'm there.
Yeah.
And we are set up and I'm seeing people for free and I'm getting their contact information and I'm communicating with them and you're not going to pick up, I did a competition 2 weeks ago. I saw 35 people in a day. Um, I got 3 clients out of it,
Hmm.
but I have the contact information and I can guarantee that probably about 10 of those will be clients
At some point. Yeah.
at some point. They're not right now. And some of that's on my own follow-up sequence because honestly, I'm busy right now. Like I'm at the point now where it's like I don't need to contact every single person to get them on because I don't really have a lot of margin right now.
Yeah.
And so, but they're there, and that's a whole another process of like how to optimize your automations and everything. And so
Yeah.
there's so many pieces of business. It's not like you just like set up and the next thing you know you're making
Right. It's not the if you build
$20,000.
it. Well,
Yeah,
like I think the thing that you're really saying is the version of Kyle that you're seeing is iteration 10,
right.
right? And like the way that I'm able to live my life now is because I went through versions 1 through 9
Yeah,
and I learned the things that I was willing to do, and I figured out the things that I was willing to do for a short time that I wouldn't do for a long time, so that I did what I need so I can do what I want.
right. Well,
And
and
like,
part of that. So actually, if I could go back up and say, what is the one thing to take away? And this isn't just a throw bone to you. This is truth. Is find somebody that's on version 10
yeah,
and jump 8 steps ahead
yeah,
because
100%.
I've worked now with four, four different coaches over the years. I think maybe five. And every single time that I get on with somebody else, there's something that they see, there's something you saw in my business that back to our leaky bucket, there was something that was missing.
Hmm.
And then from there, they said, "Hey, well, have you tried this?" I'm like, no, I didn't even think about that. And then like I can move forward. This hasn't been the Kyle show
Yeah,
for 8 years with no help. Like this has been Kyle and Jen figuring things out for the last 7 years with really smart, really wonderful people pulling us along the way,
yeah,
giving us guidance. And because, a lot of the reasons that are even the margins look like they do, like a 60% margin, they're like, well, what's your expenses? You work at a gym, you pay a little rent, is investing in ourselves.
hmm,
That's a lot of those expenses are like flying to Florida to go to this conference,
hmm,
flying to California to go meet with this person, paying you to start working as a coach,
yeah,
paying, there's a lot of those expenses that go in that aren't always like, it wasn't like we were paying rent. It wasn't like, there's
right.
other things you have to invest in yourself, both time and money in order to learn. And unless you do, you're just throwing stuff against the wall and wonder if it works. But if you find somebody that's like version 10 Ray or version 10 Kyle, and like, I don't have any inclination to want to do coaching right now. Okay. So don't be calling me. But if you're wanting that, like find that person and
Yeah.
then get a jump start, you know?
Find the person who has the model that you want to emulate, right?
Mhm.
And then figure out how you can make it your own.
And the
Um,
values.
yeah, for sure. Because I think, like, for example, if you go to somebody where you want like a lifestyle business and all they tell you is hustle and grind your face off and they make you work to the bone, like you're going to be miserable.
Yeah,
Even if the lifestyle person says like you got to go through this phase, like it's going to land differently,
yeah,
right? Because the outcome is going to look different. um Kyle, man, it's been so cool like seeing your evolution of this. It's been so cool like having a piece of me be a small part of your journey. I
yeah.
appreciate you sharing this with everybody. I think it's going to be immensely valuable. Where can people just kind of find you online and follow along with everything that you're doing, in this next chapter for you guys?
Yeah, the easiest by Instagram, just at the Moveco, TheMuvco. That's kind of that's kind of the holder for everything. We've got a bunch of really fun stuff popping up, especially, if you're in the next month or two. I don't know when this gets posted, but
Yeah.
by mid-May, early June, we've got some really fun stuff happening out here on the Wahoo, and as well as, online too. There's some really cool things happening for us. So follow along. If nothing else, you can see my hot wife and my cute kids, and kind of see what we're up to. So we have a lot of fun.
Kyle, I appreciate your time, man. For those of you following along, make sure you're following me on Instagram at Ray Gorman DPT. I'll leave some information in the caption and description below if you want to see a couple different trainings, if you want to learn more. But Kyle, thank you for your time, man. I think everybody's really going to love this one.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.